I think for a lot of men, they wake up in midlife having realized that they had some really good friends in high school and college, and then all of a sudden they let those friendships dissipate. Whereas for women, less so the case. By the time you get to 50 years old, if you're a man who hasn't really thought, as Jeff Hamui, one of co-founders, says, friendship is a practice, if we haven't actually sort of invested in our friendship muscle and gotten better at it.
This is the Midlife Chrysalis. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays with Chip Conley and Derek Gehl, your weekly conversation about thriving in midlife. Together, we explore the questions, insights, and practices that help you live this chapter with more purpose, vitality, and joy.
Welcome to another Wisdom Wednesday episode here at the Midlife Chrysalis podcast. My name's Derek Gehl, the CEO here at MEA, and I'm with the founder of this crazy organization, Mr. Chip Conley.
I'm looking very Yellowstone today.
You are Yellowstone.
Yes, I've got this sort of,
I've got some jacket envy, actually.
Yeah, no, I don't remember when I bought it a bunch of years ago. And I got to tell you, it's like, I don't care much about fashion, but sometimes when you bought something years ago, you're like, yeah, that was a good purchase.
That's a
I think it was expensive, but okay, no. And it's interesting here on the ranch, we were coming out of winter into spring, and you don't know what it's going to be like. During the day, it could be 65, 75 degrees even potentially, but at night it get down to freezing.
Yep.
So, we're doing this early in the morning, and it was actually slightly below freezing last night. And so, yeah, this is my Yellowstone look.
That's a good. Have you ever considered a cowboy hat as well to really lean into that?
I don't have a cowboy hat. Have I worn one before? For sure. But no, I guess I need one.
Yeah, I'm letting my inner cowboy out here,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I think we got to do it.
And are we going to be doing, no, we're not doing cowboy camp, but we're doing something else. We're doing an inner tracking thing, or
Well, we're doing an inner tracking thing, but we are building out the ranch experience here, and it's awesome. In fact, yesterday,
yes.
I went for a 2-hour ride on one of the drafts.
Oh,
Yes.
Explain.
So we just got at the ranch here 2 percherons. And percherons. And these are, you ever watched Game of Thrones?
They're like Clydesdales, but they're bigger.
They're taller than a Clydesdale, and they're a draft, so they're for pulling. And they're what they're called warm blood, not hot blood. So they're like the golden retrievers of horses.
Oh,
I mean,
well, I've been feeding them. I've given them some apples and some carrots.
Yeah.
So, and they're
gentle
gentle.
giants.
Yeah.
They are. And I got to tell you, they're the monster truck of horses.
Uh,
Because when we're out riding, they will go up stuff that the regular horse is like, yeah, I'm tapping out. But just phenomenal animals. But we're building a wagon tour. We're gonna do stargazing tour stuff I haven't even told you about yet.
I love it.
Super excited about this. And
No, I mean, being out here on the land really does open your mind, your soul, your heart.
Yeah.
And well, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, and we got cattle coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wagyu.
Wagyu. We're going to do rotationally graze them to regenerate this land.
Yep.
We're going to track it. We're going to document it. Ethically raised for our kitchen. And, I'm ideating on how we can even offer this to some of our alumni.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So, yeah. Anyway, lots of good stuff going on there. So the other week I was in a workshop, the longevity workshop we did. And the guys in the workshop kind of got together and we started talking. And, it was a focus on longevity. And one of the biggest longevity levers that we have for us isn't, biohacking.
Yeah.
It's community. It's connection.
It's the number one.
It's the number one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that anybody's refuted that at this point. And, the Harvard longitudinal study, Blue Zones, Dan Buettner, who's taught with us, Stanford study, all have shown the same thing.
Community.
The number one variable for living a longer, healthier, happier life is how invested are we in social relationships in midlife and beyond.
And, it's super interesting because I think men, in particular, professionals driven, that have been career focused and stuff like that, to put it bluntly, we're pretty shit at it.
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
what's your take?
Part of it is just how we were brought up.
Yeah.
And maybe this will change over time as there's a little more gender equality in how we bring up kids. But the reality is that girls feel comfortable being emotive and crying and expressing themselves and connecting with other girls. And again, these are gross generalizations. And early in life.
Yeah.
And you share secrets. I mean, boys don't share secrets.
No.
Like,
Uh,
so when I was growing up, and again, I'm 65 years old, but when I'm growing up, like the idea of sharing a secret with one
Oh,
of
yeah.
my friends, like, no, no, you wouldn't do that.
No.
But
No.
girls, that was a big deal.
Yep.
And so those early seeds of behavior that we are acculturated on stick. And so for women, as they move into adulthood and, having families and having careers, they talk to each other. And for men, it's often said that women connect eye to eye and men connect shoulder to shoulder. Now,
Mhm.
shoulder to shoulder is like, let's go do this thing together.
Yeah.
Let's go duck hunting. Let's go to a football game and watch the game. Let's spectate. Whereas for women, it's more the act of being together and having that social connection and the level of vulnerability of looking eye to eye. So I think for a lot of men, they wake up in midlife having realized that they had some really good friends in high school and college.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they let those friendships dissipate. Whereas for women, less so the case. And so by the time you get to 50 years old, if you're a man who hasn't really thought of, as Jeff Hamui, one of my co-founders, says, friendship is a practice. If we haven't actually sort of invested in our friendship muscle and gotten better at it, because the things you practice, you get better at,
Yeah.
then you start to feel like you're incompetent at it, or that you're the only one going through it, or that you don't want to be the vulnerable one saying to a friend, I'd love to hang out and spend more time with you, because they're like, why? What do you need?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah, that's really interesting. You're right. Men do shoulder to shoulder. They spectate together. And I don't think in a lot of cases that doesn't lend itself to the depth of conversation that women have who just sit down across from each other and say, let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pretty, that's actually, I think, part of the reason why women are more drawn often to workshops. Than men, although often men get more out of it because it's such a powerful opportunity to start building a skill and to do it with a bunch of other people in vulnerability. I think another piece is, when it comes to, I've heard so many people say at an MEA workshop, I think I've outgrown my friends.
Yeah.
And what they really need to consider is they've just outgrown the conversations they're having with their friends. In some cases, yes, it may be true. My friends are not changing. My friends are not interested in talking about interesting things. I can't get closer to them. But in some cases, it's just like you're used to talking about whatever.
Yeah.
And you're bored talking about that. It doesn't really evolve the friendship. And so you feel like you have to make new friends. And sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes it's more about, okay, how do we have an interesting conversation? As you know, one of my favorite MEA questions is 10 years from now, what will you regret if you don't learn it or do it now? That is a question that is safe enough that you could have with a best friend who you may have a very superficial relationship with. And you might say like, okay, hey, let's get together and go for a walk. And on the walk, let's talk about 3 different interesting topics. And so, there's ways to actually rekindle friendships by just talking about things that you normally don't talk about.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest traps that men fall into, and I'm in the heart of this, and that realization is you've spent so much time focused on your career. You think you have friends, but they're, as I think Arthur Brooks calls them, the transactional friends. Is that where that came? Yeah.
He calls them real transactional
Deal friends.
Deal friends versus real friends.
Yeah. And, it's hit me a couple times because I've left and exited a few times.
Yeah.
And, after a decade of working in an organization, you think, okay, these are my people and stuff like that. And then you exit the organization and realize that you don't have that beyond what was there that you did every day, that there isn't that connection and there isn't that.
And let me say this, there might be.
There might be. Yep.
Again, this idea of I've outgrown my friends. No, you've outgrown the conversations with your friends could apply to work friends.
Yep.
Because in work, there was a sort of structure for how we spent time and what we talked about. If you really had a genuine connection and friendship with that person, then that could continue to live on. It's just, yes, it's harder to do it because you're not seeing them every day. But, some of it's just a matter of investing the time.
Yeah.
This is why during that, often in one's 40s, and you're still in your 40s, it's a really rough era for people because often you're juggling so much. So where do I have time to allocate to my friendships? Well, guess what? Women are able to do it. Women, I mean, it's hard for women.
Yeah.
And in fact, women are juggling more often, but women seem to be able to do it. And literally it can be as simple. I remember when Bob Waldinger at Harvard, all of a sudden in the middle of his lecture said to everybody, pull out your phone, which is not something normally someone speaking says, pull out your phone and I want you to write an email or a text or a Facebook Messenger message to somebody you haven't talked with for at least 3 months, and just tell them, that you're thinking of them and that you'd love to connect at some point. And who might that be? And just the act of, again, friendship is a practice, the act of building a bridge to someone. And when I did that, I actually wrote my best friend from high school, Alan, who we went to college together. We played water polo in college together, but we went separate paths in all kinds of ways. And I love that guy. He was just a close friend. And I wrote him. I didn't even have his phone number, so I couldn't text him. So I wrote him a Facebook message. And like within an hour, he got back to me and he said, like, it's great. And so we've become friends again.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, it was that easy.
Yeah.
I just had to put myself out there. And that's a little awkward. It could be a little awkward, especially for men, because it's like, okay, again, what do you want from me? What do you need? Or like in my case with Alan, I mean, like Alan, I'm gay, he's straight. Like that, I came out when I was in business school, high school, college with him. I had girlfriends. So, it's a little awkward, for the gay guy saying to the straight guy, hey, I want to be friends again.
Right.
Especially because Alan was very handsome. Let's just be honest. But
was it curious? You say it was awkward. Was it awkward for you or was it awkward for him?
Well, it was awkward for me because I didn't want him to something weird about like I'm trying to hit up on him. But I think it could be awkward for him too, because we haven't talked in a long time. When I came out at 22 years old, I'll never forget. It's so funny story. When I came, he was in starting medical school. He was in Orange County, and I went over to his house, and he knew, like a beach house in Newport Beach, and he knew I was coming over, and we were going to talk about me coming out because he'd heard about it from other people, and he'd reached out to me. He shows up, opens the door, and he's in boxer underwear with nothing else on. I was like, wow, dude. I don't know. I know it's early in the morning, but yeah. So that's our situation. Most people don't have to deal with that, but for most men, there's an element of like
we don't want to show vulnerability.
Being vulnerable means that somehow we're damaged.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
And if we're damaged, then you might take advantage of me.
Yeah.
In terms of in some kind of control, or
probably back to our prehistoric brains.
And also like competition. Or you might talk about me and all of a sudden I'll get a reputation for being just a softie. And that's really hard. And so but if we can sort of zoom up about 10 feet above ourselves and look at this as like, are we still a 12-year-old? No. I mean, let's acknowledge that we're 48 years old or 50 years old. And you don't have to operate with the 12-year-old brain.
I'll tell you a cute story of my own father. So my dad, police officer, he was just an amazing guy, hard worker. He teaches. After he retired, he headed up conservation. Then he taught at the Justice Institute. He's written textbooks on investigation. He solved some, he's been down here on Crime Stoppers for some of the stuff he solved. Really interesting guy, but never put any time into community.
Oh.
He was
He didn't have friends.
Not real close friends, right? And a couple of years ago, he moved from Vancouver up to Kelowna. And Kelowna is a super retirement area. And they joined this newcomers club and they start meeting people. And I was talking to him a couple months ago. He says, it's great. I get together and there's guys and we talk about things and I really like it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
But it took him till, his early 70s to get there.
Yeah. You don't have to wait.
No.
And quite frankly, for those men listening to this who are wondering about this, the earlier you build the skill, the longer you have to use the skill.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Frank Ostaseski, a guy who helped create the San Francisco Zen hospice, said is that the two things that people are most pondering at death are, was I well loved and did I love well? And that really speaks to friendship. I mean, did I love well my friends? Was I well loved by my friends. Yes, spouse is important too. But one of the reasons, frankly, that we have gray divorce, it's the only age bracket of divorce that's growing, which is divorces 50 and older. 70% of the time, it's the woman who initiates it. And part of the reason is she feels like she's been taken hostage by her husband. And what do I mean by that? It means that the husband expects their wife to be everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean just like, cleaning the house, but I mean
Social support,
emotional support, conversations. And so and she's tired of that. Like, go find some friends. And so often a big challenge, and it's one that doesn't have a name yet, but I'll have to come up with one, is the challenge when the husband retires and the wife realizes that he's now just around the home all the time. And that's not how it used to be. And it worked better the other way. And so there's got to be like this thing, like, how do we help him get out of the house? And how do we help him make friends?
That's so funny, because I would have fallen into that trap had I not married the person I married, who was like, hey, go hang out with your buddies. I'm sick of you. You got to go do something, right? Like, she has forced me to do that because, I fortunately get along with my wife really well, and she's my best friend. And I, in my mind, I'm like, I don't need any more than that. I've got, my work and all this stuff. But, she's the one that has been a role model for me in building community, but then also forces me to get out there, which I know is great. So I think and I hear this through the social grapevine of, there's a lot of guys like us, right? So what you're saying there really hits. We're a pain in the ass.
Well, and that pain is exclusive to your spouse. And nobody else is feeling the pain. So go share the pain with others.
100%. It was interesting. So Barbara Waxman, one of our faculty in residence, my partner in crime in this whole longevity thing that we're doing.
Yes,
she is a machine at this. I was in the gym. We were both working out. She's on the treadmill and she's checking in with people,
often with her kids,
often with her kids every morning. But also she just calls somebody in the morning just to check in, and it's just part of her regular routine. And
I mean, it's
a practice.
It is a practice, and let's also overlay here extrovert, introvert. And I don't know any of the data about whether men are more extrovert or introvert versus women, but what I can say is that that's another thing to consider.
100%,
if you are a man and an introvert, even harder. Even harder. If you're an extrovert, then yes, you get energy from your social relationships and from connecting. But if you're somebody who actually is the opposite, you get energy from actually being on your own, for doing things that are quiet, then you actually have one additional obstacle you have to scale in order for you to not be lonely.
And you qualify as an introvert.
It's funny. I mean, I'm just so loving being an introvert again. I was, until about age 12, I was an extreme introvert. Then for 45, 50 years, I was a pretty extreme extrovert. And I can absolutely present as extrovert. I can do that. So I'm more of an ambivert. But boy, do I need my time to myself. And I felt it last night when we had, this group that I was leading, and it was a big celebration. Everyone was like, and they all went to dinner. I was like, nope, I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm done. And being able to say that.
Huge.
That's huge.
Yeah, and I think you and I are cut from the same cloth there. That's why I stay out here in the barn when I'm here, right? Gives me an opportunity to step away. I love people. I love being in it, but that's not where I get my energy from. And so I know for myself, I have to make it a practice, because it doesn't come naturally to me in terms of connecting, and I'm working on this, right? Like, just send somebody a text. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Right? Like, I think it's doable. Any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think if there's just one thing a person could take from this and like go do something now, just after you've listened to this episode, go ahead and send a text or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger to somebody you haven't talked with in at least 3 months that you care about and you'd like to actually reignite that friendship. Just do it.
And I should say, I mean, if you need more help in this space, Jeff Hamui is doing I mean, he's a legendary at friendship.
He's not just a good thinker on this. He has a book that he's written that will be coming out in the next year or so. But he's an amazing practitioner of
Exactly.
it. He has his human connection and friendship workshops at MEA. Highly recommend that you go to this.
100%. We've got a few more scheduled this year.
Good.
All right.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Chip. This one's a wrap, everybody. We'll be back next week, and leave us a rating, leave us a review, please, on whatever your podcast platform is. That helps us reach more people, and I love to read all the comments. And
I've never read them.
Oh, really? Wow, I gotta start sending them to you because they're great.
They're great. I should read them. See.
100%. I think we're doing some good work here.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
brilliant. All right, this is a wrap. We'll see everybody next week.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Wisdom Wednesdays on the Midlife Chrysalis. This show is produced by Midlife Media. If you have a question you'd like us to explore in a future episode, please send it to podcast@meawisdom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, help us spread the word by subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite platform.